Good morning. I'm Neil Lichtman from your Denominational Affairs team. I've been asked to set the stage for the Sunday service we will see on this screen at 11:30 from General Assembly in Portland, Oregon, where live General Assembly, that's GA, is being held this year. I've been asked to share with you what the Unitarian Universalist Association does and my perspectives on GA, which my wife Pat and I have attended in person a dozen times. And since today is the last day of this year's GA, the 61st General Assembly, I will incorporate what has transpired this year through my virtual attendance. Also, I wish to take advantage of this opportunity to speak a bit about Unitarian Universalism, for which I will often use the shorthand UU and the Unitarian Universalist Association shorthand UUA, which is the continent-wide association of individual congregations. I will get to GA, but not right away. I will assume that here or virtually are perhaps people or maybe just one person who has only a vague notion of what Unitarian Universalism is or no idea at all. Now, no two of us are likely to agree on exactly how to characterize our history and beliefs. So let's start with Wikipedia. Unitarianism was an organized church that grew out of the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century Common Era. It started in Poland and Transylvania. Note, Wikipedia talks about Unitarianism, not Unitarian Universalism. A bit on that later. Now, we know Christianity is a Trinitarian religion. One God exists in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, all coexisting but different persons. Unitarianism was created by people who believed in one God, like Judaism or Islam, but not Judaism or Islam. Jesus was recast as a special human or an ethicist, one worth listening to about some things and, frankly, maybe not about some other things. Now I'm going to jump to the early years of our country. In pre-revolutionary times, in many New England towns, there was a Unitarian church, but on the main square, likely there were in the four corners, there were Episcopalians, Congregationalists, Methodists, and Baptists, so we were about typically a block away. Over the years, while Protestantism and Catholicism grew into large American religions, Unitarianism did not, even as it established churches across America. Somewhat influenced by transcendentalism, Unitarianism became a home for ethically charged people who were theologically independent. Unitarianism did not offer a dogma, the observance of which guaranteed you would eventually exist in heaven or for eternity or anything like that. Essentially, Unitarianism did not offer, now please excuse the business analogy, a brand promise that was competitive with religions that did offer a promise of heaven. At best, our promise was the hard work of bringing our principles into the world would make the world better. An existence after biological death for some hope, and for others, not. We became a small, but occasionally influential religion. Now I'm going to jump to 1961 when two small religions, Unitarianism and Universalism, merged, and that's why our official name is the mouthful Unitarian Universalism. This was a strange merger because by 1961 maybe half of Unitarians were agnostics or atheists and the other half were all kinds of spiritualists, while the Universalists believed in one God and a heaven that is eventually open to all humans. So today, you'll see among the roughly 1,000 Unitarian Universalist churches in America, and its roughly 150,000 members, a wide range of theological approaches, but no set of mandatory beliefs which decide if you're really a Unitarian Universalist or not. However, we do have 7 principles, and before getting to General Assembly, I will go through them with just a very little commentary. Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That's inherent worth. 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. 4, free and responsible search for truth and meaning. 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. That's world community, not world government. 7, respect for the independent web of all existence of which we are a part. Now let's quickly review what I call the UU universe. The centerpiece is the Unitarian Universalist Association, and they put on General Assembly. The UUA started at the merger in 1961, but General Assembly goes back to 1922 when we were just Unitarians. While taking public positions on major social, racial, and economic issues, the UUA offers congregations a host of services. Here are just a few of those services: training of and continuing education for ministers, and now training for lay leaders; providing the structure by which a congregation hires a minister from those ministers who wish to be considered for that pulpit; publishing books and the UU World Monthly magazine; providing religious education materials for different age groups; congregational justice programs; and LGBTQ welcome and equality programs. The UUA speaks for all congregations on public policy issues consistent with our 7 principles. In recent years, the UUA has been exceptionally vocal on immigrant rights and anti-racism. A separate organization in the UU universe is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which funds local organizations around the world to work on social justice. Places like Myanmar, where a number of us went a few years ago, Central America, today, Ukrainian refugees in Eastern Europe, and recently in the US, Alabama, and Detroit, just to name a few places. The UUA and the Service Committee together sponsor the College of Social Justice, which sends teams of people from UU congregations to locations in the US. A group of 8 of us went on a social justice journey to West Virginia shortly before COVID. The UUA also has a United Nations office. To quote directly from the office's website, the UUA office of the UN is a non-governmental organization in association with the UN Department of Global Communications and in consultative status with the UN Economic Social Council, where we promote world community. Over the years, the UU UN office has helped draft the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, helped establish the World Court, and now promotes worldwide LGBTQ rights. And we have 4 regional offices to work on very local issues. While regional offices provide training and communication among UU churches, perhaps their most significant work is helping congregations and ministers in conflict, and that work is highly confidential. Okay, finally, what happens at General Assembly? Quoting directly from how the UU describes GA online, General Assembly is the annual meeting of our Unitarian Universalist Association. Participants worship, witness, learn, connect, and make policy for the association through the democratic process. It's where we conduct business of the association, explore the theological underpinnings of our faith, and lean fully into our mission and principles, end of quote. GA starts on night 1 with a banner parade to recognize congregations attending in person and virtually. It's a loud musical event as the banners march in and people cheer for their own congregations. This is followed by General Session 1, a brief one, on night 1. Okay, General Sessions. General Sessions happen Wednesday through Sunday to work on business issues, hear reports from many UU committees, and vote on social justice issues after vigorous debate, and occasionally we vote on technical issues as we did this year. This year's General Sessions had votes that focused on 1, instructing the UUA board to draft new bylaws that better reflect our mission and make action easier to achieve; 2, correct a critical typo missed years ago related to the UUA's Election Campaign Practices Committee; and 3, approve a study commission to continue its work on defining UU values. This is worth pausing on for a moment. The commission believes that our 7 principles are foundational ideals, but not our values. After broad and deep research among UUs of all type, they have submitted that our central value is love, and that is fed by compassion, diversity, justice, fairness, generosity, interdependence, and transformation. This work will continue. We also had votes on accepting 3 actions of immediate witness that will be sent to our congregations for study. Here are the 3 topics. 1, anti-racism and reparations through restorative justice. 2, reproductive choice is a woman's sacred right. 3, stop the privatization of Medicare. Back to evening 1, which we conclude with the first major worship service. It's an honor for a UU minister to be asked to lead any service at GA. Based on whom has been asked and the nature of the sermon, you may get an inkling of where the UUA is leaning in our tug of faith between spiritualism and humanism. I'll pause on this for a moment. Theologically, there are many kinds of UUs. Here's one take. Under the word spiritualism, you may lump old-style one-Godders, Christian Unitarians, although they may see Jesus as a human, pagans, and folks who believe in the Tao, the Li, the Force, Buddhism, or the spirit of life, and more. Under humanism, to oversimplify, you may lump atheists and agnostics. You'll find all of these folks at GA. This year, former UUA President Bill Sinkford, now senior minister at First Unitarian Portland, Oregon, led the first evening's worship service. Reverend Sinkford shared his vision of a Unitarian Universalism, a broad and deep diversity of members and leadership from a wide array of ethnicities, cultures, and sexual identities, working together with passionate purpose to create the blessed community where each of us is a blessed gift to the world and loved. For the in-person attendee, GA is the only time as a UU you will get the big church experience, since typically about 4,000 folks attend, sing together, and react together. However, this year's live attendance was greatly reduced by a large expansion of virtual attendance in COVID. In addition to general sessions, on most days there are many workshops. Some are designed to help your congregation operationally or help your congregation work on various justice issues, and some are just informative. Here are examples from this year: prison reform, building a congregational covenant, investing in social justice, owning our past, indigenous ways of knowing nature, reimagining sexuality education in our congregations, creating climate justice, and neuroethics and anti-oppression. On Thursday evening, we had one of our major lectures, the LREDA, that stands for Liberal Religious Educators Association, FAS lecture given by Reverend Sophia Betancourt, who spoke on ancient wisdom and climate justice, what she terms eco-womanist ethics. Complicated beyond our time here, essentially what she argues is that our grandmothers and even farther back in economically poor cultures, especially African, exercised what were, by necessity, earth-honoring cultures in communion with soil, water, air, and animals as they repurposed what we today throw away and recognize the value today of what today we destroy to create an illusion of wealth. On Thursday evening, we had one of the main events, the Service of the Living Tradition. This is when we honor UU ministers and directors of religious education or music and moderators of the UUA who have died in the past year. We also recognize those who have retired and welcome those who have received fellowship, credentialed, or certified status in the past year. Our special speaker was Reverend Jacqueline Duarte. Her theme was, "What is church?" Passionately, she made the case that church is where we form the courage and leadership to take a radical vision of genuine community into our body politic. Next, we go into the second full day of general session, Friday. In past years, if there's going to be a contentious issue about either how we govern ourselves or what political position the UUA may take, the tension rises. Typically, the two sides are distributing literature and making statements at smaller sessions in preparation for general session. Full day 3 is usually where these issues are voted upon, creating delirious winners and disgruntled losers. It's called the democratic process. And by full day 3, you have likely enriched your GA experience finding old friends, including some of our past ministers and interns, and congregated with strangers for dinners and evening social activities. And you probably have made a few tours through the Mammoth Exhibit Hall. For shopping, there's Skinner Press Bookstore, and there are also organizations ready to sell you all kinds of UU-themed clothing, jewelry, etc. You may well be overwhelmed by the number of exhibitors. There are roughly 100 booths this year. Beyond shopping, here's just a sampling. Representatives from our 2 UUA seminaries, plus other seminaries that can ordain UU ministers or offer advanced degrees in, say, social justice. Loretta has a booth to recruit liberal religious educators. The American Humanist Association has a large booth. You'll also find specialized political organizations that focus on regional issues, like the UU supporting a better deal for Palestinians. You can also spend time with members of the UU Service Committee and chat with Christian Unitarians, UUs for Jewish Awareness, UU Pagans, UU Buddhists, UU Mystics, and more. A few more examples. There's the UU Mental Health Network and the UU Military Ministry, the very brave, ordained UU men and women deployed for servicemen and servicewomen who want what we have to offer. Now to the main event. The third evening, like last night, is the highlight for almost everyone, the Ware Lecture. The event started in 1922, and here are just very few of the people who have given the Ware lecture, and most were, by the way, not Unitarian Universalists. Jane Addams, Reinhold Niebuhr, Martin Luther King Jr., Elliot Richardson, Mary Oliver, Karen Ann Armstrong, Sister Simone Campbell, Stacey Abrams. Last night, we heard Ibram X. Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist and the author of Stamped from the Beginning, A Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. He is the Andrew W. Mellon Professor in the Humanities at Boston University. However, instead of a lecture, he was interviewed by the president of the UUA, and time today forbids me going into great detail. However, here are just a few of his key points. A white could enslave a black. That was accepted long before being rationally justified. And justifications over time increased in sophistication as they were sequentially knocked down. Education comes too late to change racism. Kids learn from parents from the time they are 2 years old. Black crime is high in some, but not all poor neighborhoods. But we never describe these neighborhoods as dangerously unemployed neighborhoods. No one focuses on middle-class black neighborhoods, which have very low crime. Not slavery, not Jim Crow, not lynching have dehumanized blacks. Then why are they as a group labeled as less than fully human or defective by so many whites? Professor Kendi argues for blacks to improve strategizing power, organizing power, managing power, and then measuring outcomes to see what works. After a short break, we will join the Sunday service, which closes the 2022 GA. In preparation, I will now quote from the GA program book on this year's Sunday service theme. In this moment, when so many of us might be wondering if we should just give up and relent, now's the time to double down on our commitment to the local church, this unique community that saves us and also breaks our hearts, often much more the latter than we'd like to admit. In the midst of our culture of death, the church is a place of life, or it is, as long as we are willing to bring our own lives to it. Join us for a morning celebration, witness, and future visioning for the already and not yet power of the local Unitarian Universalist Church. Thank you.